Hello, and a quiet welcome back to the Dusty Codex. Our stories often explore the quiet, forgotten corners of history, but sometimes those corners are not just forgotten, they are dark. They are places where the veil of the past is thin, and the questions that remain are chilling to the bone. Today, we journey to one such place. We are always curious to know where our stories are travelling to, and where your corner of the world is. Please, take a moment to let us know in the comments where you are watching from today. In 1922, on a remote Bavarian farmstead called Hinterkaifeck, 6 people were brutally murdered with a mattock, a tool similar to a pickaxe. The case remains one of Germany's most infamous and disturbing cold cases, not just for the crime itself, but for the chilling, almost supernatural details surrounding it. Days before, the farmer found mysterious footprints in the snow leading to the house, but none leading away. And most terrifying of all, evidence showed the killer lived in the house for several days after the murders, feeding the cattle, eating in the kitchen, and sleeping in a bed, all while the bodies of his victims lay hidden in the barn. Hinterkaifeck was not a village. It was not even a proper hamlet. It was just a farm, a cluster of buildings, a house, a barn, and a shed sitting alone at the edge of a dark forest, over a kilometre from the nearest neighbour. It was not a place you passed by. It was a destination. The farm was inhabited by the Gruber family. At its head was Andreas Gruber, a 63-year-old farmer known in the area for being miserly, ill-tempered, and deeply unpopular. With him lived his 72-year-old wife, Cecilia, their 35-year-old widowed daughter, Victoria Gabriel, and Victoria's 2 children, 7-year-old Cecilia and 2-year-old Joseph. The family's isolation was not just physical, but social. They were known for their secrecy and their troubled internal relationships. Their previous maid had fled 6 months prior, claiming the house was haunted. On the afternoon of March 31st, 1922, a new maid, 44-year-old, arrived at the farm. It was her first day. She would not live to see a second. The horror of Hinterkaifeck did not begin on the night of the murders. It had been building for days, perhaps weeks. The farm was uneasy. Andreas Gruber had told neighbours that he had recently found a single set of footprints in the fresh snow, leading from the dense forest to the back of the farmhouse. He searched for hours, but could find no footprints leading away. Then there were the noises. Gruber complained of hearing footsteps and whispers in the attic, right above the family's bedrooms. He would search with his pickaxe, but found no one. He also found an unfamiliar newspaper from Munich on his property, a paper he had never purchased. Just days before the killings, one of the house keys vanished. The family's sense of isolation was turning into a sense of siege. Someone, or something, was watching them, toying with them, and had perhaps already found a way inside. Sometime on the evening of March 31st, 1922, the horror began. The exact sequence of events is unknown, but investigators pieced together a chilling theory. The killer, likely hiding in the barn or the attic, began his work by luring the family members to their deaths, one by one. The weapon was a mattock, a heavy grubbing tool from Andreas Gruber's own shed. It is believed that Andreas, his wife Cecilia, his daughter Victoria, and his granddaughter Cecilia Jr. were all lured to the barn, perhaps by a noise from the cattle, and murdered. The killer then moved from the barn to the house. There, he entered the bedrooms and killed the 2 remaining residents, the new maid, Maria Baumgartner, in her quarters, and finally the 2-year-old infant, Josef, as he slept in his cradle. The entire family and their new maid were gone. A farm, isolated by snow, fog, and secrets, had now become a silent tomb. But the killer did not flee. This is where the case leaves the realm of the merely brutal and enters the truly bizarre, the incomprehensibly chilling. It is a mystery that, 100 years later, still chills to the bone. It forces us to confront the unknown, not as an abstract concept, but as a ghost that eats at a kitchen table. If these explorations into history's darkest enigmas, the questions that time has refused to answer, are what you seek, I invite you to subscribe to the Dusty Codex. Your support allows us to continue our search for these quiet, unsettling truths. The killer did not flee. For reasons that defy all logic, he stayed. The murders happened on a Friday. On Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, neighbours reported seeing smoke rising from the farm's chimney. The family's dog, who was normally tied up outside, was found untied and barking. Most chillingly, someone had been tending to the livestock. The cows in the barn had been fed and milked. In the kitchen, someone had prepared meals, eating the farm's bread, cheese, and smoked meat. The killer, or killers, had lived on the farm for at least 3 days, sharing the small space with the 6 bodies of their victims. This fact transforms the crime from a robbery or a crime of passion into something else entirely. It speaks to a level of coldness, of sheer audacity, that is almost incompressible. The killer was comfortable here. Perhaps, in some twisted way, he felt he belonged there. On April 4th, 4 days after the murders, neighbours finally grew concerned. Young Kazilia had been absent from school. The mail carrier noted no one had been to the postbox. A search party was formed, led by a neighbour, Lorenz Schlittenbauer. They checked the house, finding it strangely empty. Then they went to the barn. The scene they discovered was a nightmare. In the barn, they found the bodies of Andreas, his wife, his daughter, and his granddaughter, piled together and covered with hay. Inside the house, they found the maid Maria and the infant Josef, murdered in their beds. The Munich police were called, but the investigation was a disaster from the start. The scene was hopelessly contaminated. Neighbours, police, and Gawkers had tramped through the house and barn. The bodies were moved. The initial autopsies were botched. The police were overwhelmed, facing a crime with no apparent motive. Robbery seemed unlikely, as a large amount of cash was found untouched in the house. This was something else. This was personal. The police investigated over 100 suspects, but the case never closed. Suspicion fell on Carl Gabriel, Victoria's husband, who was supposedly killed in World War I, but whose body was never found. Did he return? Suspicion fell heavily on the neighbour, Lorenz Schlittenbauer, who had a known affair with Victoria and may have even fathered the infant Joseph. His behaviour at the crime scene was strange, and he seemed to know too much. But no theory, no suspect, ever fit all the facts. The farm itself, a place of such horror, was demolished just a year later, in 1923, as if to erase the stain. The 6 bodies were buried, but the skulls were sent to Munich for further study by clairvoyants, a sign of the police's desperation. They were never returned, and were lost to the chaos of World War II. Hinterkaifeck is not just a cold case. It is a historical void. The evidence, the motives, and even the final remains of the victims have been swallowed by time. All that is left is the bone-chilling story of footprints in the snow, of a family silenced, and of a spectral killer who, for a few dark days, made a home among the dead.